Hello, my friends. Good to see you. My name's Miss Ng from the Shayla North Hills Library. I have a pretty cool book that I actually found out about when we were reading Twinger, Twinger, Twinger. It was like one of those ones where if you like this, you might like this, and I do like this. If you like Twinger, 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 which I loved, you will love The Greedy Sparrow, I think. This is an Armenian tale, a folk tale, retold by Lucine Kasparian and illustrated by Maria Zakina. And the illustrations are great, and it's an old tale. Let me tell you, though, author's note, Armenian fables begin with this same line. Once there was and was not, to suggest that fantastical tales may be real or imagined. The fable of the sparrow, which has been in the Armenian oral tradition for centuries, was first put to paper by the Armenian poet Hovhannes Tourmenian, who lived from 1869 to 1923. In The Greedy Sparrow, an original composition, we learn that people who engage in dishonest or selfish behavior may end up losing whatever they gained because of that behavior. And the dedication says, to my Armenian forebears, great-grandmother and father, all of whom preserved the sparrow fable through the ages. And an Armenian proverb she put on here, guide the seed carefully and the tree will grow upright. I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Y'all growing upright. I know it. Check it out. And then I will hold up. Okay, check out the pictures. I think these pictures are phenomenal. Once there was, and was not, a sparrow who caught a thorn in his foot. He flew and flew until he spotted a woman baking bread. Oh, baker, baker, will you pull this thorn from my foot? With pleasure. The baker removed the thorn and the sparrow flew away. But the baker tossed the thorn into the oven and got back to work. Why would you keep the thorn, right? After a while, the sparrow returned. Give me my thorn! But I've thrown it in the oven. Either you give me my thorn or you give me some bread. The baker saw that it was no use arguing, so she gave the sparrow some bread. The sparrow picked up the bread and continued on his way, and soon he saw a shepherd tending his sheep. Oh, shepherd, hey, would you mind this bread for me? Like, it means watch it. With pleasure. The sparrow dropped the bread into the shepherd's hands and flew away. As the sun rose higher, the shepherd got hot and hungry. He eyed the bread. What if I milked the sheep, dipped the bread in the milk, and ate it? And that's just what he did. After a while, the sparrow returned. Give me my bread! I got hot and hungry. I milked the sheep, and I dipped the bread in the milk, and I ate it. Either you give me my bread, or you give me a sheep. The shepherd saw that it was no use arguing, so he handed over a sheep to the sparrow. Well, the sparrow picked up the sheep and carried it off. It's a pretty strong sparrow. Poor sheep. They flew over Mount Ararat and Lake Van until they came to a wedding celebration on the Armenian island of Agtamar. They landed next to the bride and the groom. Can you imagine seeing that on your wedding day? Or any day? Will you mind this sheep for me? I'll return for it later. With pleasure. As the sparrow flew away, the guests sang and danced and made merry until the food was all gone, and while the groom danced, he eyed the sheep. What would happen if I slaughtered this sheep and grilled it and made shish kebab for all the guests? And that is what he did. After a while, the sparrow returned. Give me my sheep! Oh, we ran out of food at the wedding, so we slaughtered the sheep, we grilled it, and made shish kebab for all the guests. Either you give me my sheep, or you give me the bride! Seeing that there was no use arguing, the groom surrendered his bride. The sparrow and the bride traveled the mountains and valleys of the Caucasus. She does not look happy. After a few days, they came upon a minstrel who was playing his lute by the Arax River. Minstrel, would you mind this bride for me? With pleasure. The sparrow left the bride and the minstrel flew away. Well, the sparrow, let me say that. This is what happens when you say a sentence like without the right emphasis on the right syllable. The sparrow left the bride and the minstrel and flew away. Left them both. As the minstrel sang to himself, he became so enchanted with his melody that he forgot all about the bride. Seeing this, the bride stole away to return to her groom. And after a while, the sparrow returned. Give me my bride! When I wasn't looking, the bride stole away. Either you give me my bride or give me that lute! It's a musical instrument, like a guitar. Seeing that there was no use arguing, the minstrel gave the sparrow his lute. The sparrow took the lute by its strings and flew over the mountains. In the distance, he saw an apricot tree overlooking the shores of Lake Sevan. He rested on a thorny branch. He strummed his lute. He smiled to himself, and he began to chirp a little song. In place of a thorn, I got me some bread. In place of some bread, I got me a sheep. In place of a sheep, I got a bride. In place of the bride, I got a lute. And now I'm a minstrel. But as the sparrow rocked with glee, he lost his footing, and the lute fell too, leaving the sparrow as he began. He had nothing but a thorn in his foot. Wah, 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 wah. And that's the story of the greedy sparrow. And it's definitely a fable. So when it talks about there was and was not, because that wasn't very nice what happened to the bride and the sheepy. And the sparrow too, but it was proving a point. All right, friends. That's the story for tonight. And I thank you so much for allowing me to serve you as one of your librarians at the Charlotte North Hills Library. Would you kiss your beautiful brain? Would you kiss your loving heart? And would you look in the mirror and say, hey, good looking? Because you're all good looking, just the way you are. Thank you, friends.